Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. Today I'm sharing with you one of our favorite recipes. We probably have this once a week, and that is our chicken curry. One of my favorite things about this recipe is just how easy it is. It takes really no time at all. It's just such a good one on a weeknight when you don't really know what you're gonna have, and it gives you the very best curry. I've tried a lot of different recipes for curry, and this one by far, hands down, is the very best that I've found and the easiest. I'd say one thing for me is I love cooking, and I feel like a lot of times the very best recipes are the ones that sometimes take a long time. But I think there is something to be said when it's both easy and the very best thing you've ever tasted. So I think that there is a gem, and that is this. So I would highly recommend making this. What's also great about this recipe is that a lot of the things are non-perishable or frozen. And even the things that I am using that are fresh today, you can use the dried versions, you can use just a lot of different substitutes, and it turns out just as good. And I think that that is really unique. All right, so here is what you'll need for this recipe. You'll need olive oil and butter, half of a large onion, 2 chicken breasts, 1 can of coconut milk, 2 tomatoes, 1 teaspoon of chicken flavored Better Than Bouillon, 4 garlic cloves, 2 tablespoons of curry powder, fresh ginger, 1 teaspoon of paprika, 1 teaspoon of sea salt, a little bit of turmeric, and cauliflower. So the first thing we're gonna do is prepare some of our ingredients. You will need an Instapot, and let me just say I am not an Instapot fanatic. I do not love the Instapot, but for this recipe, it's key. And this is, like I said, we make this once a week, and that's what we use this Instapot for mostly. So we're also gonna preheat our oven to 425 because I'm gonna be making some roasted cauliflower. Again, what's great about this recipe is if you don't want to use cauliflower, you don't have it on hand, you can also use rice, really anything that you'd like to serve your curry on. All right, so I'm gonna turn my Instapot onto saute mode, and I'm just gonna cut up this onion here. I've made this recipe so many different ways with, ground spices, fresh spices, and fresh is my favorite, but I feel like this recipe can still stand on its own if you're using ground spices. I'd say 50% of the time I use ground spices, and it's delicious. We're also doing a chicken curry today, but we've also done this with beef and like steak or beef, and it is so good. All we did differently was we didn't put in the coconut milk, and so that's a really cool option as well. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of dice this up. It's perfect. I'm just gonna add a little bit of olive oil to our Instapot and add our onion. We'll just let this saute for a few minutes, just until it's kind of softened a little bit. All right, and while that is sauteing, I am just going to cut up our fresh ginger. Again, you can use ground ginger. Usually I honestly do use ground ginger, or go to Trader Joe's and you can get these little, it looks like little ice cube trays, but it's actually ground ginger, and we love having that on hand, but we're out. So honestly, there's kind of a lot of options for this, but again, really flexible. And you can just use any old amount. I kind of just had a chunk, and I'm just gonna kind of use whatever seems like good. I love ginger though, so I err on adding more than less. And I would finely dice this, but if it's gonna be okay if it's bigger chunks because we are gonna kind of blend this a little bit later as well. All right, just give this a little stir. Good. All right, so next I just have 2 tomatoes. I usually like to pick up some fresh tomatoes, and I do put these in. I honestly just get these anytime we're at the store, but I have made it with canned tomatoes, and that is just as good. Typically I just like to use around a half of a can, so that's the only reason I don't always like using a can, just because then what do I do with the other half? I'm just gonna kind of dice these up a little bit. Again, larger dice for this is totally fine because we're gonna kind of blend this up. All right, so now I'm just gonna add my ginger and my garlic. And put that just right into the Instapot there. Give that a little bit of a stir. It's totally okay if it's getting a little brown on the bottom. That's honestly good. I love it that way. All right, so now I'm going to add my spices. So I have this tandoori masala. You can probably use any sort of garam masala, curry powder, curry paste. This is my favorite one though. So the blend here is coriander, cumin, garlic, turmeric, ginger, onion, chili powder, black pepper, cloves, paprika, cinnamon, and nutmeg. This is the best one we've found. A lot of curry powders have like a certain taste that we don't really like, and I'm not sure what it is. Like to me, it's just like, oh, this taste is in curry powders that make it so it doesn't taste like a restaurant curry. So I don't know what it is, but this one we really like. All right, so I'm gonna add my 2 tablespoons. I can really be pretty generous here. And we've got just some paprika. Gotta do 1 teaspoon. I would just do kind of like a dash of turmeric and 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. I'll just mix that up. And this is kind of, you want to kind of toast the spices up, so it's totally okay for them to kind of be not burning onto the bottom, but kind of sticking on the bottom. Let that cook up just for a couple minutes. All right, at this stage, I'm also just gonna add a little hunk of butter. This is totally optional. We've made it plenty of times without it, but I feel like it gives it a little bit more of like a butter chicken type of taste, a little more decadent, but really yummy. All right, at this stage, I'm just gonna toss my tomatoes in as well and kind of let that cook down a little bit. This kind of just gives it a little moisture. All right, so I'm gonna add a teaspoon of this Chicken Better Than Bouillon. This is our favorite. I feel like it really helps you not have just like a ton of chicken stock and kind of keeps. So you can be pretty generous with this. Just gonna put that in there. And I honestly don't put a particular amount of water, but I would say this is probably roughly like 1/4 cup. I like to do the least amount of water as possible. I'm gonna add that in. Honestly, a lot less, like not that much at all, because I don't like it to be super liquidy, and this chicken holds a lot of water, the frozen chicken. So I like to keep it as thick as we can. All right, so I'm using 2 frozen chicken breasts. And these can cook just from frozen. I'm just gonna add these in here. And I kind of just like to nestle these into the sauce a little bit. All right, what I like to do is I kind of like to just get a little teeny bit of sauce on top of these chickens, just because it kind of helps them a little bit of flavor in the cooking process. You don't have to be totally submerged or anything, but just a little bit. Great. All right, so now we're just gonna close this guy up and make sure this is closed. So we're gonna turn this on to manual for 30 minutes and then we're good. So now I'm just gonna prepare my cauliflower. And so this is where you can do rice or cauliflower rice or really any sort of grain you'd like here. And yeah, so this is just gonna cook up, and after that point, we'll pretty much be almost done. All right, it's been 30 minutes and our Instapot just beeped. We are gonna let it naturally release steam probably for around 5 or 10 minutes. So it's gonna count up, 5 or 10 minutes. And then we'll be ready to kind of do the next thing. We are ready, so I'm gonna just let the rest of the steam out here, and then we'll be able to shred our chicken. All right, so our chicken is all good. All right, so we're just gonna shred our chicken up. And I don't mind kind of nice, bigger chunks of chicken actually, but you can kind of do whatever you'd like here. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add our coconut cream. You can also use coconut milk, but just make sure to put it in the fridge like 24 hours in advance so that it kind of separates up. So we're gonna add this, and then we're gonna immersion blend all the mixture here in the Instapot. If you don't have an immersion blender, go ahead and use, you know, a blender, food processor, but it is really good to blend it up. So don't just leave it like this. And for the coconut cream or coconut milk, just use the solids. Don't use the liquidy and milky portion. So we're just gonna kind of scoop out all the solids here and just put that right into our curry. All that loving goodness. But see, don't just pour in this like liquid part, just scrape out just the solids. And because I'm adding like kind of colder coconut cream, I do like to turn it on saute just right during this step. You don't need to keep cooking it or anything, but I just like to kind of heat it up just a little bit more. So at this point, I like to just taste this kind of mixture here, just to make sure it has enough salt and pepper, and if it needs it, I'll add a little bit more. So we can go ahead and taste it. So delicious. I always like a little bit more pepper, so I usually always add a few circles. But very delicious. All right, so we can go ahead and build our bowls. Like I said, we have that roasted cauliflower from the oven. We'll have our chicken, curry, and then I didn't mention this because you do not need it, but I like to add any fresh kind of herbs I might have. So I just had a scallion in the fridge and a little bit of leftover cilantro from a different recipe. So I'm gonna put those on top. I definitely suggest it. I think it's so good, but it doesn't need it. So that's just one extra little bonus tip there. So a little cauliflower. And a little bit of chicken. And there we have our chicken curry. I hope you try this recipe out for yourself and let me know down below what you've been making lately. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe, and hopefully we will see you next time. Bye.